I, 21 ma'am, found a folder on my girlfriend's 24F laptop containing hundreds of candid photos of me. We've only been dating for 5 weeks. I recently found myself in a situation that felt straight out of a thriller movie. I'm 21 years old, and I had been dating my girlfriend, who is 24, for about 5 weeks. One night, I stayed over at her apartment while she went to work the next morning. With no classes to attend, I decided to kill some time by watching Netflix on her laptop. As I unlocked her laptop, I noticed her photo gallery was open, and to my shock, I saw a folder filled with hundreds of candid photos of me. I had no idea these pictures existed. Some were taken on campus, while others were even from when I was asleep at her place a few weeks back. It was unsettling, to say the least, especially since she doesn't even attend my school. So I couldn't understand how she had all these photos of me. I spent the next hour trying to figure out how to address this with her when she got home. I was genuinely confused and a bit freaked out. Some comments I received suggested that this could be a sign of stalking, and I started to feel the weight of that possibility. A few of the photos were taken before we started dating, which made it even creepier. When she finally returned, I wasted no time. I told her I'd found the folder, and she just stared at me, seemingly unfazed. After a long, awkward silence, she muttered, "Well, this is awkward. I don't really know what to tell you." I pressed her for answers, but she offered none. After about 15 minutes of trying to get through to her, I decided it was best to end things. I told her I didn't want to continue our relationship, and she remained silent, still staring at me. I left her apartment feeling a mix of relief and unease. Since that day, she has blocked me on all social media platforms, and I suspect my phone number as well. I haven't heard from her since. Now I'm left wondering if I should be concerned about her reaction. The lack of emotion during our conversation was chilling. It felt like I was dealing with someone who didn't grasp the seriousness of the situation. I've taken precautions, documenting everything in case I need it later. I'm just hoping this is the end of it, but I can't shake the feeling that I need to stay vigilant.
I, 25, accidentally discovered that my 2 roommates, 25s, have a gossip podcast about me. I never imagined that my life would turn into a reality show, but here I am, a 20-year-old college student, stumbling upon a secret that my 2 roommates have been keeping from me. It all started innocently enough when I was picking up the mail one day. Among the usual bills and advertisements, I found a postcard addressed to my roommates from a friend who is away at a religious camp. What caught my eye was the mention of their podcast, which apparently had my life as its main topic. The postcard described how the latest episode made her day, and how she laughed at the parts discussing my eating disorder and mental health. It was like a punch to the gut. I had always known that my roommates enjoyed gossiping about me, often whispering in adjacent rooms. But I never expected them to take it to the level of a full-blown podcast. It felt like they were turning my life into entertainment, and I was the unwitting star of their show. As I processed this revelation, I couldn't help but feel a mix of frustration and betrayal. These were the same roommates I had lived with for the past year, and now it seemed they were sharing my most personal struggles with the world. It was distressing to think that they were discussing my private matters, things I had confided in them, and treating it as fodder for their audience. I was left wondering how I could confront them about this without making our living situation even more uncomfortable. In the weeks leading up to our move to a new apartment, I found myself grappling with the idea of whether I should stay or go. I had the master bedroom and was responsible for the gas and electricity bills, which made it complicated. I suspected that my roommates were only keeping me around because losing me would cost them a lot of money. It felt like I was being held hostage in a situation that was becoming increasingly toxic. As I prepared for the move, I sought advice from friends and online communities. Many suggested that I should consider moving out as soon as possible. After all, who wants to live with people who treat your life like a gossip column? But the thought of uprooting everything and finding a new place was daunting. I had already invested so much into this apartment, and the idea of starting over was overwhelming. Finally, the day came when we moved into the new apartment. I was determined to address the elephant in the room. I gathered my courage and confronted my roommates about the podcast. I expressed how uncomfortable I felt knowing they were sharing my personal struggles with others. To my surprise, they seemed taken aback. They hadn't realized the extent of their actions and how it affected me. After a tense conversation, we reached an understanding. They agreed to keep my personal life private moving forward, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was a relief to know that I had stood up for myself and set boundaries. While I still had my reservations about living with them, I hoped that this experience would lead to a healthier dynamic. In the end, I learned a valuable lesson about communication and the importance of standing up for myself. It's essential to have open conversations, even when they're uncomfortable. I may have stumbled upon a podcast about my life, but I was determined to take control of my narrative moving forward. I never thought I would find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, sharing my experience of discovering that my 2 roommates had a gossip podcast about me. It all began when I signed a lease for an apartment last October. My roommates toured the place without me and signed the lease, expecting that I would join them. At the time, I was actually looking for studio apartments for the following year, but I felt pressured to sign anyway. As I settled into living with them, I started to notice some strange behaviors. It felt like I was being talked about behind my back, and my instincts were right. One day, while I was minding my own business, I stumbled upon some fan mail that was meant for my roommates. The contents made it clear that they were discussing my personal life on a podcast, and not in a flattering way. I was shocked and hurt. It felt like a betrayal from people I considered friends. I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe they were just trying to be funny or relatable, but it was clear that they were crossing a line. I even found myself questioning my own mental health, wondering if I was overreacting, but I knew deep down that what they were doing was wrong. In the aftermath of this revelation, I sought advice from others online. Some suggested that I could take legal action, since sharing personal information without consent is a serious violation. One commenter even mentioned that if one of my roommates had signed a confidentiality agreement for her job in the medical field, it might apply to my situation. The thought of reporting them crossed my mind, but I ultimately decided against it. I figured confronting them would only fuel their egos. After a few months of living in that uncomfortable environment, I made the decision to move out. I found a new apartment, and in a twist of fate, it turned out to be directly across the street from my old place. At first, it felt strange to be so close to my former roommates, but then I realized it was a perfect opportunity for some passive-aggressive fun. I could live my life without them while knowing they were just a stone's throw away. I also adopted a cat from Craigslist, who quickly became my new best friend. Life started to improve significantly. I found new roommates who were supportive and understanding. And I even began to excel in my classes. My partner and I were still going strong, and I was finally able to focus on my own happiness. Looking back, I'm grateful for the support I received from those who understood my situation. It was a tough journey, but I learned a lot about myself and what I deserve in friendships. I may never find that podcast my old roommates created, but honestly, I'm better off without knowing what they say. Life is good now, and I'm ready to embrace whatever comes next.
8th, for refusing to stop washing my hands just because my coworker is sensitive to smells. I work in a small office where one of my coworkers has a rather intense sensitivity to smells. It's gotten to the point where no one is allowed to wear deodorant or perfume because she throws a mini tantrum if she detects anything other than plain, clean air. Honestly, it's a bit ridiculous. We often receive company-wide emails reminding us that we're a scent-free zone, and everyone just rolls their eyes and goes back to work. Recently, this coworker has been on a rampage, claiming she smells perfume around the office. The funny thing is, no one has admitted to wearing any, so her complaints have become a daily occurrence. She even took it upon herself to conduct smell tests by walking around the office, sticking her head into each person's workspace to sniff them out. It was like a bizarre game of hide and seek, but with sense. One Friday, I had just returned from the restroom when she approached my desk. She took a big whiff and immediately lost it, claiming that the perfume she had been smelling was coming from me. After a bit of back and forth, we figured out that it was actually the hand soap I had used in the bathroom. I mean, come on. I told her, quite professionally, that hand washing with soap is a non-negotiable hygiene practice, and I wouldn't stop just because she was a bit overly sensitive. The weekend rolled around, and I dreaded returning to work on Monday. Sure enough, I got called into a meeting with my boss and this coworker. It turns out that the maintenance guy had switched the soap in the bathroom a few weeks back, which coincided with her newfound sensitivity. She had mistakenly associated the scent of the soap with perfume, and every time someone washed their hands, she thought it was someone wearing fragrance. To smooth things over, my boss decided to buy new unscented soap for the bathrooms. During the meeting, my coworker was quite dramatic, pointing her finger at me and claiming I didn't respect her. I had to keep a straight face because honestly, I don't take her issues seriously. There have been times when she's complained about smells that no one else can detect, and she even demanded that everyone stop using scented detergents at home. Spoiler alert, no one has. I've been professional throughout this whole ordeal, even though I don't really consider her a friend. I asked her to explain how I disrespected her, and she stumbled over her words, unable to provide a clear answer. I couldn't help but ask when I could expect an apology. It's been quite the adventure, navigating this scent-filled drama at work, but at least I can say I'm committed to my hygiene. I recently found myself in a rather bizarre situation at work, involving hand washing and a coworker who is particularly sensitive to smells. It all started on a typical Friday when I decided to freshen up by washing my hands with my favorite scented soap. I enjoy the clean feeling and the pleasant aroma that lingers afterward. However, my coworker, let's call her Sarah, took issue with it. She confronted me, claiming that my hand-washing ritual was disrespectful to her sensitivities. I was taken aback. I mean, who knew that washing my hands could be a cause for drama? I tried to explain that I was just trying to maintain hygiene, but she wasn't having it. The conversation escalated, and before I knew it, she stormed off, leaving her purse behind. I couldn't help but wonder if she was just going to sulk for the day or if she truly had a problem with soap. As I settled back at my desk, I started to piece things together. It dawned on me that if she was so sensitive to smells, perhaps she didn't wash her hands often enough. I chuckled to myself, relieved that I had never shared any of my homemade dishes at the potlucks with her. Who knows what kind of hygiene practices she had. After reading some comments on my original post about the incident, I found myself laughing even more. One person suggested that next time Sarah goes on one of her rants, I should ask her how she didn't notice the smell of the soap in the bathroom. Another chimed in with a playful gasp, questioning if she even washes her hands after using the restroom. It was all in good fun, but it made me realize just how ridiculous the situation had become. In the end, I decided to keep washing my hands as I always do. I mean, personal hygiene should never be up for debate, right? I just hope Sarah finds a way to cope with her sensitivities without making it everyone else's problem. After all, a little soap never hurt anyone.
My wife, 25F, threw away my entire Pokemon card collection because she said I was too old for it. I've been collecting Pokemon cards since I was a kid, and I'm now 30 years old. These cards, some dating back to the 90s, hold a lot of sentimental value for me. They remind me of my childhood and the joy I felt while collecting them. I kept them neatly organized in binders on a shelf in my office, a space that felt like a little sanctuary for my memories. A few days ago, I noticed something was off. My collection was gone. When I asked my wife, who is 25, about it, she casually told me she had thrown them out. She said, "You're a grown man. You don't need to play with kids' stuff." I felt a wave of sickness wash over me. These weren't just cards. They were a part of my life for decades. The fact that she didn't even ask me before making such a drastic decision was shocking. When I expressed my anger, she doubled down, insisting I should be grateful for her helping me move on. In that moment, I realized that I might need to reevaluate our marriage. I felt betrayed, and I wanted to shout into the void about how I was feeling while I figured out my next steps. As I shared my thoughts with others, many echoed my feelings. They suggested that this was a serious breach of trust, and I started to see it that way too. It wasn't just about the cards, it was about respect for the things I love. I began to think that if she could throw away something so meaningful to me, what else might she dismiss in the future? I accepted that my cards were likely gone for good. I even checked with the local rubbish collection service, but they couldn't help me retrieve them. I was left with the realization that my wife's actions reflected a deeper issue in our relationship. I decided to move out of our home and made it clear that I intended to file for divorce. She didn't take it well, admitting her wrongdoing and calling it a lapse in judgment, but I knew we couldn't reconcile. In the days that followed, I received an outpouring of support from people who understood my loss. Some even offered to help me replace the cards, but I declined their generous offers. Instead, I encouraged them to donate to local homeless shelters, as I felt that would be a more meaningful way to channel the kindness. Ultimately, I realized that while I would grieve the loss of my Pokemon cards, I would likely grieve the marriage even less. It became clear to me that I needed to prioritize my happiness and surround myself with people who respect my passions. This experience taught me a lot about the importance of valuing what we love and the relationships we choose to nurture.